So this is what it takes for me to see you in person.
I
We have to
know.
sit down
Look
and
at that.
thrash out what women in sport.
We're gonna save women in sport.
Otherwise, it just isn't going to happen.
I'm so
Is
glad
that
this came about
is
because
that
I
where we
get
are?
to see you before I go to Cape Town.
Jeez, that's just scary. This whole Cape Town thing of yours is a story for another day. But look, obviously, we go some way back. Probably not as long as I'd like to lead people to believe. But obviously, I know you. But not everyone knows exactly who you are and what you're about. Obviously, today I'm speaking with the one and only ex South African hockey goalkeeper, Sanani Mangisa. Sanani is like nobody knows that, like the rest of your name. Who is also, for all his sins, an Olympian. I say an Olympian for all his sins simply because to play hockey and be an Olympian in this country is a pretty interesting thing. But that's a story for another
journey.
day. Yeah, but obviously, you've been retired a while now.
Yeah.
I want to say how's retirement, but I saw. Well, I sent you a text last year about running the comrades before and after you'd run it. So I'm not 100% you even retired. I mean, do you even call it retirement that? But I'll ask, how is retirement? What are you up to these days?
That's an interesting question because I think, firstly, athletes always go through some version of retirement. We constantly, you know, get this inkling. I'm still in it. I'm still not. Then I play club hockey. Then I don't play club hockey. Then I'm involved in some way, and then one day you just let go of everything, which is kind of where I'm at. Retirement is actually quite good. I'm having the time of my life away from actually hockey. I made a conscious decision last year to stop all forms of hockey, and somehow I went from one drastic action to running comrades. So, and that's what got me out of hockey because I was just like, I'm going to get injured a few days before comrades and I'm going to get everything. And also, you get injured in club hockey over stupid things because there's someone thinking they need to show off or need to prove something, and you've done all your proving, right, in your career. But all of a
Yeah.
sudden, there's someone who wants to tackle you or come at you. So, yeah,
Look,
I watch now as a spectator, and it's a good seat to be in. Um,
look, playing club or getting injured playing club, whatever, is a bit like, you know, being taken to hospital after being run over by a bicycle or a bike or something like that, or a delivery bike. It's not real, but it's real,
no, it's not real because the
and it
stakes aren't
comes
high.
and it comes with a certain degree of
Yeah,
indignity. It's just
I think the stakes aren't as high as when you were playing because now you got injured at club, you've got World Cup in 2 months' time or something, a big tournament, then it becomes sticky. But the now you're just a social athlete with an injury. Now rehab's going to take longer than usual because you're not going to focus it every day. You've got other things to do. But yeah, retirement and post sport in retirement is an interesting place to be in because you're just as competitive. You don't lose that.
I was about to say I can't reconcile you and social anything.
No,
Well,
you
all
don't.
social when it comes
You
to
don't
sport.
lose that. But you know what you bring yourself to. You bring yourself to a place where you're going. I don't have to be as serious. There's a difference. I'm still very competitive, but I don't demand seriousness from people around me. And I'll explain that to you because when I was playing,
Mm.
if I got to club hockey and I was still in the national team, I demanded that the ball be on target all the time because I was trying to get a level of training there. I wanted to mirror national training in club. And there's just girls at club who are just like, I'm here for 2 practices, we'll have a drink afterwards, it's okay. So that's where that gap is that I'm here for serious training. There's a girl who's here for just vibes. And now you then move on to that area of I'm also just here for just vibes, but you're still competitive because that's intrinsic. That's nature, man. I want to beat you in a card game. I want to beat you, on small things. So competitive wise, it never leaves you, but you just learn to tone down the seriousness of yourself.
Listen, I know you're a big coffee person for all your sins. You're a big wine person, and I think you're a bit of a food snob.
Yeah.
I think I've sort of seen one or two of your chats with some of your friends about how, you know, lamb chops don't quite cut it as gourmet. In my world, they do, but obviously, I
I've got to
mean,
clarify that statement actually.
no, you guys were
Yeah,
just you guys were just being food snobs,
yeah,
and I've met so many of you in my life. It's just like, I don't know. I eat as a chore, so
yeah.
I never quite, you know, I never quite got into, you know, enjoying it. But clarify it nonetheless.
So I think what sports did for me is expose me to a lot of different foods, right? Traveling, getting to taste different foods around the world while playing sport. But I think I want to stay away from food snob because it sounds like I don't then appreciate umusho and and meat. I do, but that's what I like. I like food prepped well, right? The best lamb chops in Joburg, believe it or not, are at the library, which is the Standard Bank Lounge at the
Okay,
airport in Joburg. I'm willing to
it's
fight you on
it's
it.
fine. No, 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 no. At least now I know where to go,
Yeah.
because my whole issue was that, you know, the tone seemed to be that, you
No,
know,
no, it's just an
that wasn't
appreciation
a
of good
great meal,
food.
and I was like, hang on,
Um,
wait, I love that stuff.
yeah, no, it's appreciation of good food and understanding that we don't have to have fancy tables and decor. Just prep the meal well, treat the vegetables with care, and prep good food. And and I think that's I'm lucky because sports did that for me. It exposed me to different parts of the world to be able to taste different foods. I mean, my best foods come from a little cafe, hardly bigger than our studio in India, but prepped beautiful curry, naan bread prepped right in front of you, old style, and it's a family restaurant, and that's the best curry you'll ever taste.
Now, I know you haven't, you know, you're not running ultra marathons for, you know, for a living since you stopped playing
Yeah.
hockey. So, what have you, you know, work wise, what have you been up to? Because obviously that's it's probably the one thing that you guys worry about the most,
Yeah,
because you know for a fact when you start that there will be another career, and actually, you know, making it stick isn't always as, you know, as easy
it's
as it
easy.
sounds.
Yeah. So what I did is I actually studied finance, believe it or not, at varsity, because I was me being defiant. I did not want to be on sports campus
Mm.
because it felt like every athlete studied sports science
Human movement.
or human movement science, or not that there's anything wrong, but I was just being me, defiant as usual. I wanted to be on main campus, studied like a 3 year degree with honors. So I studied finance, and then I've never opened that side of my career ever again. In terms of obviously I do numbers and budgets where I'm at now, and I'll get there now. But I moved away from there because my passion was always in business and sport. How does the business of sport work? So after I retired, I landed up at Frontier Sports and Entertainment at the
Yeah.
time, which was an agency basically that helped rights holders and brands come together in sponsorship. And I learned a lot from there because now I get to understand it on a different level, right? And it's not a level of, oh, we don't get sponsorship. It's a level of what do the numbers say? What are the objectives of the sponsorship say? What do we need to achieve out of the sponsorship? So I kind of learned a lot from that. So that was my first real gig and job. And really it taught me just speaking to the brands, speaking to the guys with the money, but also speaking to the rights holder. How do you set up your business to be able to attract money, attract sponsors? So, and then after that, I moved on to a sports brand, Adidas. Spent a few years there as a running manager for South Africa. Basically, we set up a nice running program that back then, Adidas Runners,
Mm.
which has grown from strength to strength and launched some very cool running campaigns. And then at the time, I just had this bit of complex, I think, that I had not studied marketing or strategy or. So where do you go in South Africa? You go to Vega to go study that stuff. So I took a year off, went to Vega to.
I drink next to Vega at
Yes,
Old
okay, at
Parks.
all parks. So I think it was a bit of a complex on my side. I needed to get credibility, although my career and my years in it so far were giving me that, but it just felt like I needed to have the papers for it. So I went and studied. Came back from our studies, kind of looking for something to do, and landed up also being the sponsorship and brand call it, yeah, manager across marketing operations in Africa for Betway, which is a totally lovely gig as well because one global brand, but two operating across Africa. So right before my last trip actually was to Ghana right before COVID. We came back in about late Feb and people were already wearing masks. I was like, what are you guys doing? Little did I know what they were doing. So Betway taught me a lot. Also, just operating across the continent. Wow, mind blowing, eye opening. Getting to understand how do you bring a global brand in conversation in market to markets that aren't as developed as your UK, let's say, but also keeping that central part of it, right, of the brand, because you've got these beautiful brand guides designed by the Sachis of the world, and you really need to now not put it on a billboard, but paint it on a wall in Ghana and Accra, because that's the kind of branding you'll get there. Yes, there's LED boards, there's big billboards, but also, your eyeballs are in foot traffic areas, and that might be a wall. So balancing that was quite fun for me, because what you're doing is you're balancing your global brand outlook from a head office perspective, which the guys sit in London, but to understanding that we need to immerse ourselves in the cities that we're in, whether it's Nairobi, whether it's, as I say, Accra, whether it's Lagos. You need to understand where you're operating and how do you tailor your messaging and your platforms where your messaging is. So I quite enjoyed Betway for that reason, and it was nice to have a healthy marketing budget as well. That's always fun to do.
So
But
one thing, that's, I mean, it doesn't matter what situation the country may be in.
yeah,
Those companies
no,
are
those
always
whew,
doing well.
yeah, and you know what? I absolutely love data as a person. I remember the days we used to get into the office and say, and the guys said that goal from X player saved us X amount of money because they calculated what the payouts would have been
Wow.
had someone not equalized and or someone not won the game for a certain team. The payouts would be X amount. But now, because he scored in like the 89th minute, it levels things out. So I was fascinated about that because that becomes like Champions League nights were big. We would come in the next morning, discuss numbers, and you just, either had a big night or a very poor night, but you always know like the house makes it back.
I always get impressed by. I mean, I do a little bit of work for, obviously, for Superpix, and one of the things is, the guys basically, they hit you with the stats,
Yeah,
in terms of which punter got how much
yeah,
money, and we're working with the Nigerian market. A guy will like put down 700 naira,
yeah,
which is like not a lot of money, on a multifold stake, like all these different
yeah.
results, and somehow he comes through at the end and he gets it done, and he's won like millions,
Millions.
and you're
Yeah.
like, how do you do
Yeah.
that?
But those you find those guys are in it for a long time. Whereas they don't wake up on a Wednesday and feel like betting like
Yeah,
me
I
and then put
guess.
some money on and I lose
And
hundreds.
certainly not a Thursday night bet with your mates.
No.
Yeah, I bet you this
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
It's a consistent looking at things and not betting with your heart. Understanding. Guys got books so you go back onto what they bet on last time they were here. So yeah, I enjoyed my time in at Betway and looking at data points and those kind of things. And then I went on to make TV. I'm with Thackle and Whitaker, which is marketing through storytelling, very much into the sports world and the entertainment world. But I absolutely love that as well because you start getting to understand how do we market differently and how do we market to human emotion because that's what marketing is, right? Talking to me via my heart and then making me pull my wallet out, and that's what we aim to do. And
Yeah, it sounds like those expensive Adidas sneakers you're always looking at.
yeah, I've got a
Somebody
little bit
clearly
of a
markets
problem. Yeah,
somebody clearly markets through your heart.
yeah. Look, I've got a slight problem there. Um, Shoes, wine, coffee. But yeah, so that's been an interesting world, and working with athletes from a different perspective. Working on the FIFA World Cup was big. Rugby World Cup now coming up later on this year, and you just work on cool projects, I guess, and Two Sides, which was one of my projects, but it was kind of like, how do you make life hard? Oh, let's make a documentary, two teams, complex teams,
Yeah.
and and just tell their story. But that was, yeah, a fun project for me, but it had its complexities because you're dealing with the side that's lost
Yeah.
the series, and you're also just dealing with North and South and things about how to position their brand. So it was quite interesting, but at the end of the day,
You're also dealing with all the leaks and the,
no, for
leaked
sure.
videos and the
Like
whatever.
what do we tell and what don't we tell? And the aim is to never lie, never tell, in TV, never, always tell the truth, never shape a story the way you want it to.
I know a lot of the
You
TV
you
I
can
watch.
intercut clips, I guess, but always keep it authentic and honest. And when you get to that point, you don't lie. As I say, you don't tell untruths. If you've interviewed Alan Jones and that's what he said, put it as what he said. So
Well, it's
yeah,
a nice. That's always been a nice thing about broadcast. The subject can't exactly turn around and say I was misinterpreted or misquoted.
Yeah.
It's you can actually play the clip and be like,
yeah.
this is what she
Yeah.
said. Sure, you could hold back, a rider or a proviso in their answer, but by and large, it's
And
nigh
you've had
impossible.
many instances where athletes have come back or people have come back and said, I didn't like what I said. And that's fair. Then they
That's the
ask
worst stuff.
politely and say, can you not use it?
It's
And
the worst because
it
it's
is the worst.
usually the good
It's
stuff.
the good stuff.
It's
That's
never
the
the
problem.
bad
It's
stuff.
always the good
No
stuff.
one ever
but
comes up with something innocuous and
know?
says, "Oh, I didn't like
Yeah.
saying this." It's like, as you said it, I knew this was
Knew.
going to be great, and then
But you have to respect that, and even though you try to sway it and say, look, it's not controversial, you were being honest and open, let's keep it. We'll only keep 5 seconds of it. It won't, and they insist, and you've got to respect that.
All right. Jeez, you sound like you've been busy.
I have a little bit.
Well, somebody got to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we here to talk about the women in sports, which I know I feel like it's August all over again. Um, we need to talk about this, or what's it, December 16th. No women, no violence against women. I'm not a big fan of talking about women in sport in isolation,
Yeah.
because just by doing that, you kind of like condoning whatever has been going on, whatever discrepancies have been going on. So I think the first question I'll ask you is, I think at the moment I'm as a huge sports fan. Um, every time you put on your TV and you want to watch a channel, it's there in front of you. Here for her.
Yeah.
How do you, obviously as a woman in sport, be it in the past or currently, because either way you're still a woman in sport. Um, how do you react to that? Do you roll your eyes and go, here we go again with the lip service, or do you go, hopefully it takes this time?
Um, I think for me, there's building blocks. I've come to understand that there's building blocks to everything, right? And when I see a campaign like that on TV, I'm happy. I'm happy that it's getting exposure, it's getting eyeballs, and then my first reaction is happy, and then my second reaction is then what are we doing? Lay it down.
Mm.
So the first reaction to say great campaign, I'm happy. It's really highlighting for some people. You and I know sport. We know the World Cups that are this year. We know what's going on in the world globally around sport and women's sport, but some people don't. So to put that front and center and to go, guys, remember, we're probably not going to have more women's World Cups in 1 year than this year. Let's get fired up. Let's get excited. And then, if that's your overarching line, how do we then layer it down and down and down? And that's where the jobs to be done always lie. That's the easy stuff, you know. You make phone calls and the right phone calls. You can put any women's sport on TV tomorrow, right? But does that?
Why does it not happen on a more consistent basis, if that option's available?
For sure it's available, and then it becomes a numbers game when you start. Obviously there's businesses to be the lights have got to go on in businesses, and you start understanding that, for any, let's say, any production company, or let's say Supersport, or Sky, if you giving them a ready made package to put on there, it's a lot cheaper than them taking production teams out, right? So you can put sport on TV at any time, but it's also a number game. What are we moving around? What do those numbers say? Who's watching? And kudos to the broadcasters who have said deliberately, let's put it on. It may not take 3 years ago, but we know the long term road is this. This is why um, we're putting it on now to expose people to sports. We're televising maybe the women's game at Ellis Park that plays before the Springboks game. We'll televise that. Reason being, we want people to tune in earlier, or we understand that we've already got our personnel and our crew there. Let's sweat the asset and make sure we televise that and expose women in sports, but we're also there for the main game that's paid actually for the broadcast. So those are kind of interesting things on how you go about it. And then, you know, the whole question is like, why don't we see more women in sport? It is there. It is there, but such campaigns let us know where it is. Tell us where to find it. It's hard sometimes. How many times have I tried to watch the Champions League women's football, which right now, one of the best women's products in terms of viewership. We just gotta, where do I find it? Where do I want to watch it? Maybe I don't want to go, like the likes of us will go, you'll pay per view, whatever. Some people don't operate like that. Some people really just want to turn their TV on and find it on. So we're needing to expose that, more of that to people. Put on the, but it's also quality. And I know we're gonna get this question or this comment. It's also quality, but put on, the packed out women's Champions League final. Put it on TV because it's full. It's a good product. It's top class, football. Put it on, and this someone's gonna say it's a money's game, but there's ways to skin a cat. You're gonna pay for that broadcast somewhere else. You may
Yeah.
not pay for it directly now, or it may not pay itself now, but it's going to get some return down the line.
To to that end, I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier. I think Ellis Park last year, before the Boks played, the women's Bok team played as well. I think it was Spain or whatever it was. Is that a big part of the answer? Sort of going the captive audience route. Like 100%. You're already there.
Yeah. So get us into the stadium early. That's another strategy, right? Is I don't think a lot of people knew that game was on, to be quite honest. So now
defeats the whole purpose, doesn't it?
100%. But get me then to go watch both games, and then and attach it to something that's already got an audience, already got a captive audience, and got the numbers coming in, but steal those eyeballs as well. And you're not taking them away from the main game.
And build all kinds of sort of packages into it, in terms of who you're bringing now. If watching a women's game, suddenly little girls are being taken instead of just dads taking their little boys to a Bok game. Now you can do that, and that's kind of like what you try and work into.
For what it is, it's just like, also tell us these things are on. And it sounds, so guys, it sounds simplistic, but if you're not in it, you don't know that team is playing. I don't know when Banyana's fixtures are. Because more platforms have the men's fixtures because they're all over the place. But do that, expose content-wise, give everyone what they need to know. Keep drumming it in. When the next World Cup is, the Women's Cricket World Cup is completed. When's the next one? Let's all just keep information sharing. That's on that level. And then keep the exposure of, because the quality is there. You don't talk about quality is there. The quality is 100% there. My next one is, how do we get more games of what's I've even forgotten now, the Premier League, Women's Premier League in England. Great quality football, right? I even joke around. The only Chelsea team that's winning is them, the women's team, because the men's team aren't doing anything.
I
So let's
remember, I remember that interesting debate about their coach, whether she should get a gig with one of the men's team in the Premier League, which I guess was an interesting thing all
yeah.
of its own, because again the
But
implication was, she was being done some kind of favor. It's like
no,
she's got this team that cannot
yeah.
lose.
So it's the same as Becky Hammond, Spurs in NBA.
Yeah,
Works under Popovich, Greg Pop, for a long time, and then finally lands a WNBA head coaching position. A lot of people still saw that as a downgrade. You've gone from the NBA to a head coach of WNBA team, and she was just like, no, you know, I will be ready for an NBA gig one day. I've gone through the processes. I've missed out on a main gig, but I'm going to take that one for now because this is serious sports. This is serious stuff.
yeah, because
And
it's always the implication, isn't it? That
yeah,
I spoke to Joey Mongalo, who left being the defense coach
at Bulls.
at the Bulls
Yeah,
for the Sharks, and there he's going to be a head coach at Curry Cup level, which means he's now no longer coaching at franchise
yeah,
level. And I said to him, "Oh, isn't it a bit of a downgrade?" He was like, "Yeah, but I can run a program and I can show people what I can do running a program.
program.
I've got, it was kind of like I've got time. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously we all don't know what your
No,
time
no,
looks
for
like,
sure.
but he was kind of like, well, I'm using the time I have
And he was
to
optimistic
be
about it,
ready.
and he wants to put all his energy in saying, "I'm running a program." And same, I think, as Becky Hammond. There, she wants to go run her own program, showcase what she can do, and then, the Nets should have probably got her because they wouldn't have the problems they have now.
Yeah,
But it's that, and then you expose yourself as a head coach as well, because head coach is not easy
no.
in any, whether you're in the NBA or the WNBA. Being a head coach where it all lies on you, it's not easy. So go prove yourself there, and then come back. And if you do get a gig in the NBA, then you're ready for it and you step up and do it.
So to to get back to that campaign, the Here for Her campaign, um, obviously the women's sport is very much on the
Yeah.
agenda um, in South Africa. I want to take you back to your personal experiences of being a woman
Mm.
playing sport, and probably the double whammy of being a woman playing sport, which happens to be hockey.
Yeah.
The you know really the distant cousin of absolutely any
Everything.
sport in this country. Yeah. I mean, when you look at it now and kind of compare it to what it was like when when you were at the coalface, what has there been a difference? And if so, what is the difference?
um, I'm starting to feel a difference in the air, and just by basically, I think probably three teams are carrying that difference. It's Banyana,
Mm,
and it's then the women's momentum women's cricket team,
mm,
and then the netball team. So the growth of our women's sport probably lies on those three teams, and what they've just done purely first is perform. Can't hate on that, right? Winning team. That's the first part. They're just winning, and then they're going. So they're taking care of business, and then when you take care of business on the field, it just means that the arsenal is a bit more to go fight.
yeah,
Fight the money battles, fight the program battles, because no one's going to tune you about winning.
yeah.
You're doing that
It's
already,
done.
right? 100%. So you're doing that already. So no one's going to come at you. The business is taken care of. Its business is done. So I'm definitely feeling a little bit of momentum, but then going to Sunday was a lovely day in Newlands. I wish I'd been there. And what Sunday brings in any sport is I hope this kickstarts a conversation. I hope this kickstarts a momentum. Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
It's not, right? What have we enabled for that to kickstart? If I light a match now and hold it, it's burning nothing but my hand. If I light a match and throw it on wood that I've built up to spark up, it's going to go. So that's what it always happens. After Banyana came back from AFCON, I hope this kickstarts. I bet you their program is exactly the same as before they left for AFCON. But now it's got an endpoint of FIFA World Cup down under and in New Zealand. But that's what I mean. We must always be setting ourselves up going, we win this, it opens this door. We win this. So we mustn't hope. We must say, by winning this, right? The only thing that we can hope for is that more girls would be exposed to it. Right?
Mm.
That can we can be like, cool, we hope girls can believe that they can play a cover drive like Horizon Cup, But outside of that, we've got to be doing the work. We've got to be doing the work with corporates, with commercial. The conversation must be had now, like with with broadcasters.
Mm.
Sure, you the World Cup was put on, but that's a bit of maybe ICC and the broadcasters bringing it. But ordinarily, how many of the women's program are you showing?
Mm.
Okay, now that you've seen that we can watch, show more to us, right? By hitting those numbers that we hit at the Women's World Cup, because that's what the World Cup facilitators is interest and growth, then Supersport, we actually demand you guys to show 10% more because we've proven that the numbers are there. So it's those kind of discussions that making sure that as federations, as bodies, we using the the acceleration, because that's what these tournaments give us, is an
Mm.
acceleration point to keep moving the sports forward. You win semi-final of a T20 World Cup is big. It pushes it forward. By pushing it forward, then we're making sure we're unlocking those doors. We're not just going, I hope this just pushes forward to somewhere. Where are we trying to go to? But and it's sad. I say that, but like I'm always frustrated because that will constantly come up. We hope this really galvanizes the country and really no. We want to say these are the action points, right? Banyana have won AFCON. By virtue of winning AFCON, this is now their program. They will be playing 18 international matches before. They'll be in camp for so many days. Their program looks like this, setting them up for success not only this year, but in the next World Cup. Because that's our problem. We want to work to this World Cup. This
Mm.
World Cup is gone. If you haven't planned for 2028 Los Angeles now as the Olympics, you're late. It's now 2023. But that's the thing, right? We're only focusing on 24 probably
Yeah.
because gold medals don't come this year. They come 6 years down the line. So we've got to be planning for that growth all the time. Women's netball we've known for how long? And I hope those structures are there, those key points. And something that World Cups bring into our country, especially the ones we host, they bring the expertise of a global tournament with us as hosting. So we don't get to, you know, we're good at putting on stuff, right, as South Africa, but I don't think it becomes as good if the T20 World Cup team doesn't come with it and the expertise and the money.
Yeah.
So let's use that. It's someone else's money, right? It's not. It's not CSA's money right now.
Yeah.
It's someone else's money has said, World Cup in your country, South Africa. Oh, we then go, okay, cool. It means that you're footing the budget a little bit. We then going to use this moment to grow. So now, because the standards are higher, it's simple. Ticket sales are different. Branding is different. Team sets up a different. Gaza, it's just different. It's a World Cup. Whether it's here, whether it's Australia, it's constantly just different. So let's use that, especially when you're using someone else's money, to be the catalyst to grow interest in it. I mean, I don't have it on hand now. Maybe Sean has it. How many games were sold out over the cricket? I can imagine a lot,
Yeah. A
because
few.
because those crowds looked beautiful. I mean, I moaned, and we know why they went to the P's and of this world
Yeah.
because of Stadia. But man, well done, Cape Town. You came out in your numbers when it was your time, and you really showed that support wise we can do it. Those photos of
Yeah, the cues
The
were
cues were insane,
something
and that's
else.
what we want to see,
I'd
right?
never seen that for anything
No,
women related.
that's
Like
what
as
we want
someone
to
who
see.
used to report on women's sport,
Yeah,
I mean, as the journal, you just used to walk in,
walking,
like it's almost you, like, and just your colleagues, and then just the two teams, and
their
a bit of
families.
family,
Yeah,
and that's it. It's done.
yeah,
So to see that was
yeah.
quite was quite interesting. So as someone who has been involved on the sponsorship side of,
Yeah.
what have the traditional barriers been to obviously, I mean, for want of a better word, because that's
Yeah.
not been the case, to throwing the money at women's sports.
So traditionally, it's an exposure thing. Traditionally, and I say that because old school marketeers will want to put money. What branding do I get? What front of sleeve do I get? What exposure on TV? Where's it being broadcast? Once you understand the deeper stuff into, we can build marketing packages with minimal TV exposure because everyone wants TV, but only so many brands can be on the front of the Springboks jersey,
Mm.
right? Then how do we start tailoring different packages for better reach? Because TV will always be big. It's the biggest reach, right? Especially if you're on free to air.
Yeah.
But there are ways where if we don't have TV, what do we do? And that's a constant conversation. When you don't have TV, how do you package your rights in such a way that you reach the audience, that you really talking to people on another level? And it's not easy. So you, because TV it is what it is. But now we're needing to build those packages. We're needing to get marketing managers and marketeers who are just thinking slightly differently, because it may cost a little bit less, but you're gonna get more out of it. And maybe it's a positioning thing as well, because we've constantly known the stars of the world has positioned themselves outside of the clutter of men's sport.
Yeah. Momentum.
Momentums of the world have positioned themselves outside of that.
Investec and golf.
Investec have positioned, and they sponsor the women's hockey for some time. So those are deliberate decisions, right? Because you can see deliberate decisions to go, guys. I can't afford 60 bar for front of jersey for the Springbok, but I can afford 20 for the national women's team, and we're gonna make it work. And here's how we're gonna make it work. So it's been those moving away from traditional rights in sponsorship packages, tailoring rights that suit you as a brand and a rights holder, but also that being clear about who you are as a brand. As I said, we've now sitting here, but we've identified Momentum, Investec, and Spa as three brands who have just said, that's our alley. We're going with it. We're going to see this to the end. It's going to grow in leaps and bounds, and we're willing to back this horse. And that's kind of like for me and we'll always cry because there's always cries about money and sponsorship and commercial and not backing women's sport. But I think we've always thought about it in the traditional way.
Yeah.
And once we start thinking outside the box, we're going to see more value points, more value moments, and how do we get involved in growing this? And that plus federations taking themselves seriously is going to be a big win. And I say that because I go back to stuff like hearing that the Cecil Women's League starts 5 minutes late. That is unacceptable. Like a game cannot start. I can't arrive for a marathon 5 minutes late. I don't arrive for comrades 5 minutes late. I can tell you right now, the gun's gone and I'm 5 minutes.
And you're 5 minutes behind.
But consistency of the product and professionalism of the product. Start on time. Have your referees. Shirts, two teams walking out in the same shirt color should never ever happen anyway. Who did not do their job? But it's those things. Take care of the basis of professionalism, and then, because now you're asking a super sport to broadcast our games, but you tell them some games start 5 minutes because the ref didn't arrive. No. Come on.
Sorry, guys.
Doesn't.
Sorry, guys. I'm just going to interrupt for a second just to get in the recording. We'll let it out of just that question earlier. Just might as well get it in because we can get it up.
Yeah.
I mean, the record attendance for a women's T20 match in South Africa was set in the opening game when 7,500 attended there. And it gradually got broken as the tournament went on,
Yeah.
and it was 12,282 is the number I see there. That's the capacity of New Zealand's cricket these days, which is very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Of course, but to get that context on an international stage, I mean, the previous World Cup final at the MCG, there were 86,000.
Yeah, I was about to say, I saw a ridiculous
match.
number
So
with
I think
regards
it's
to that.
like important to get it in that kind of context, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Cool. But also, to that, something simple. Katy Perry was a big pull there. I would love to know. So you're using a strategy, right? You say, we may not fill the MCG, but just this cricket game, we're going to put Katy Perry. You're getting Katy Perry, getting cover drives. I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
totally in. Like, I'm there.
Exactly. I think that's kind of what we, that's what we miss. You look at, you talk about those sponsors that have positioned themselves as, that's cool. We'll deal with the, with the women's teams. Because of where women's sport is in South Africa, whatever you do, you're on a winning wicket simply because every single story is an event. Every player that comes through is an event.
Yeah.
You go through the Proteas player, you go through the
stories everywhere.
Yeah, their stories are so much better because, well, they don't come from the traditional sort of, if it's rugby, guy doesn't come from Grey Bloom.
Yeah.
Grey Bloom
Yeah.
fall into an academy and start for, the franchise side next year.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. The path's there, and anytime they can be, associated with you,
that. Yeah.
or their stories can be associated with you, suddenly you're not just sponsoring a sports team.
No,
you are changing lives, and
100%.
I think that's what, it's kind of like what people miss when they don't sort of volunteer and sort of get to the front of the queue to sponsor women. Like you say, it will be cheaper. That's the first thing.
Sure.
And secondly, every single story. I mean, I talk about Investec. The story of, I think her name is Zetum Chemla, golfer.
Yeah.
Incredible story. I interviewed her, and I mean, I came close to tears, and I'm a pretty jaded guy by now, and I was just like looking at her and thinking, whoa, how is this? And again, you kind of like, and she talks about how she couldn't get to tournaments, and Investec got her to tournaments.
All of a sudden, you've got you just an opportunity to play.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
What opportunity to play. That's what sponsorship does for women's sport. It gives you funding and opportunity for growth, because now we can go to 6 tournaments a year, and we're just getting better and better at each tournament. Or you can have a full prep program. That doesn't mean I'm working in the mornings and training in the afternoons. I'm fully invested into what I'm doing, and that in itself is just changing the dynamic of that sport. And all our other predominantly male dominated sports that are doing well were never where they are from this jump. They've had to have their growth, then they plateau, and then a lot of them now are at moments of reckoning. Golf with Live, different rugby formats that are being introduced every other week. Everyone is at another, after the plateau, another rise. So we coming from women's sport going, let's shoot it up, and shoot it up quite quickly.
I was actually going to ask that. In all the time I've watched sport, the sports that climb and practically don't stop climbing, women's sport.
Yeah.
It's, I always look at it and I think they can't possibly.
Yeah.
You look at Banyana's ascent to African champions. It was swift and it was decisive, despite having less to go around. Because you look at the women's Proteas side, same thing. It was semi-final, final. Yeah. But there's always like there's always a point.
Look what's consistent there. Sasol, Banyana. How many years? I think we can get the number.
Yeah.
Consistent sponsorship of that women's team for years. Momentum and cricket. some level of involvement. They haven't always been front and center, but they've had some level of involvement with the
Yeah.
team, and it just keeps on growing. So that's the thing. Stay the course. Don't come on for 2 years and be like, we didn't realize our, or we feel like without. Commit as sponsor. Commit to, we're going to do this thing, and we're going to do it properly. And yeah, sure.
2009 was the start of the Sasol Banyani Banyani one, and it's signed up to 2025, so it's at least a 16-year relationship.
That's where we're at. Consistency of sponsorship. Then we're building a relationship. We keep changing the sponsorship. We keep growing things. We just, it's like knowing your partner's in it for a long time, right? Not threatening you with a breakup every week. Like, like you're in a relationship and you're getting threatened with a breakup every week. It's not comfortable because you're sitting
Clearly,
on
I've
the
been
edge.
involved in the ones I've been in. But anyway,
but it's that, right? Now you know someone is there for the long haul and they're going to see you through tough times and good times. And then you can start setting up proper programs, because if you go to the USA now, right, as Banyana, and say, we commit to a tour of 4 games if you guys commit to one back. But now, you can't commit to that if you don't know if you're going to have funding next year. That's what that allows you to do. And then all of a sudden, shucks, we've got USA team coming here. Sanani's definitely going to watch that with a lot of her mates to see Ali Krieger's, Megan Rapinoe's of the world. I want to see that, those top sport. But someone sat down and said, we've got the money to do this. Let's do a deal where we play there, they come here, and we expose 4 games, 8 games quality. Or you invite other countries,
Yeah.
you know, and you become a setup at 4 nations here, 4 nations there. But that's what a committed sponsorship partner does for you, able to plan long-term programs. And I picked those 2 out because I knew that Sasol had been in it for a long time.
Well, as someone who once gently chided me on Twitter about supposedly not knowing when the Women's Rugby World Cup was last year.
That moment is my favorite bait moment, because I will go, there's a football World Cup this year. No, there's not. And I just absolutely love it. And I do it on purpose because
You caught me out. I was terrible. But one thing's for sure. Over the last 3, possibly even 4 years, the talk around women's sports is, I don't want to say louder because then you make it sound like it's an irritating thing, but it's become more and more prominent. What do you attribute that to? What's changed?
It feels like it's coming from different parts of the world, right? And that's the beauty of it. It's a moment of reckoning in different parts of the world, and we are generally global citizens as humans, because we watch TV and we consume a lot of things. So it feels like it's coming at us a lot more because we're just hearing it at different platforms. Monday, you're hearing it on different television. Tuesday, you're hearing Megan Rapinoe loud. Wednesday, you're just hearing it from different sectors because it faces exactly the same challenges. I don't want to call them issues, they're challenges. It faces the same challenges. So the voices are then becoming, may not be unified voices, it's fine, but they're speaking that side. Canada women's soccer team have just been outspoken. So I can guarantee you now, they got to have a voice because the USA women's soccer team got a voice.
Yeah.
So when you see someone, hang on, those guys have got a voice, let me also speak up. So it just becomes that ripple effect. It just becomes, there's a sponsorship that lands, some brands going, okay, we got overtaken by that brand in that market, let's see what we can do. So it's just start becoming, you're watching, what are they doing? Okay, we're going to do it, we're going to mirror something the same. And it's just that. And it seems louder, or it seems more in our face because the base is so low. We come from a low base.
Yeah.
So when the base is low and your growth is 300%, yes, it's 300% from naught, but it just keeps getting louder and more prominent and in our face. And it's the beauty of it, right? As I said before, no other sports just starts at the top. We just got to keep growing it. We just got to keep going at it. And I love that different parts of the world facing similar things, and now everyone is just talking about it, Wimbledon realizes, okay, our paychecks will have to be the same, guys. Like, it is what it is.
Listen, I'll never understand that. So all 4 Grand Slams are equal pay,
Yeah.
and yet there's all kinds of quibbling in the tournaments in between.
Yeah.
Your Masters, your 500s,
Yeah.
your whatever. And you're just like, hang on, wait, guys. I mean,
How do-
surely
we
if you're all playing to get to the Grand Slam, why on God's green earth would you suddenly, would you have that,
I guess
issue?
where that lies, and from just on a business point of view, is that those many tournaments, even though they probably governed by the ATP, they then can run their own shows. So they're seeing it as if I'm selling a ticket for £150, I also get to set my payout. Or I think that's where those kind of conversations come into play.
Yeah.
Is that the Grand Slams will be looked at as the 4 majors of the world. Let's have some consistency there. But when you start, letting guys, the Miami, Indian Wells, like, guys can play around with their business models and their money models because essentially they run those, even though they're governed. Don't do that. Don't do this by the ATP. But you're right. It's kind of those conversations about, and then we'll get to this later. But it's that equal pay dialogue, and
It's coming up sooner than you think.
what it actually means, though. You can dive into that now.
No, the question I was going to ask was, and it's a terrible question to ask. Maybe I should start by actually just talking.
Don't explain yourself.
Just finishing.
You're gonna mansplain it hard.
Oh, shut up. Just to finish the Grand Slam thing.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that, once one of them did it, suddenly all of them could find, could find it in their budgets, because that for me is, it reeks of, oh, you could have done it, but you just didn't want to, and that for me is a problem. It's just like,
but that to me sounds like any work that people have, right?
I guess, yeah.
So if I can get you to work for me for X, and you say yes, oh shit, I actually had double X in the budget, but you said yes to X, so I'm gonna pay you X because you said yes to X, but I actually had double. It takes balls, it takes kahunas, it takes guts to be like, no, they are worth this much and we'll pay them that much, even though they'd probably be happy with 100,000 rand less, and we could get away with it. But we don't just want to get away with it. We want to make a statement that this is what's happening. And that's
So, what I was going to ask was, you said a bit earlier, the base is so low.
Yeah.
Coming from such a low base, does the conversation of equal pay detract somewhat from so much that needs to happen? Because essentially, I'm not sure which is more important. Is it equal pay, or is it working on getting the same structures in place that produce the same, that produce the men, and that produce, the quality, in inverted commas, performances that the men are supposedly putting out to be able to make these demands. So what I'm saying is, does it detract from what actually needs to be done?
So when you open the dictionary and it has a word and then it starts explaining what the word means, that's how I feel about equal play. And we need to then have the discussion. Equal pay is not only about money. And that's where we fundamentally get it wrong in the whole world. Equal pay is framed, that's the word, right? But it's framed under, the US women's soccer team don't want to play on AstroTurf. They want to play on grass. That's equal pay, right? The WNBA don't want to take commercial flights. They want to get chartered. That's equal pay. So we've now seen it as just a purely money thing, of money in my bank account, in my pocket.
Yeah.
No. its structures, its systems, its astroturfs. It's, as I say, like, I don't want to be steward, 6 foot whatever sitting. No, you know, you want to fly private overnight, get home, sleep in your own bed, rather than waiting for a flight the next morning. So everyone actually is at pains in the women's dialogue to explain this, that when we say equal play, we mean equal opportunities, we mean bigger shares of what we're bringing in, bigger
Yeah,
shares
yeah,
of our bonuses when we do win. Because, cool, the men's team may be bringing in more, right? But why they should not be getting as much in bonuses because they're not winning more?
yeah,
But we'll get more in bonuses because we're winning more. So it's those kind of things. Is that it's been framed only as a money that you take and dit at the end of the month, but it's not that. It's better revenue structures. It's better medical aid. It's better contracts. How many athletes are women's athletes are actually contracted? Full, here's a contract from Sorry, here's a contract from
mm,
Safa. So it's those kind of things. Unfortunately, the words then lend itself to being about pay, just money, equal pay.
yeah,
But it's equal treatment, if I could call it that.
yeah. It's almost
Yeah, and I mean the money's there.
it's almost
Again,
like everything.
no,
It's almost like everything these days. You
yeah,
kind
but
of like
it's
we tend to try and
yeah.
sort of
We zoned in. It
drill
was
something down to
the
one
bigger
thing
pie, yeah.
in terms of looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Actually
And
reminds
to that, sorry,
yeah,
Sims, to that, the once we start, as I say, contracting players, not having to worry about medical aid, then you start just playing and focusing on what gets you on the pitch to be able to perform, because you're not worried about medical aid, insurance, getting to the next game, that families, every sport. The beauty of it is that we can look globally to different sports. Um, and I'll reference again something that's a little bit more progressive is the WNBA.
mm,
Then you start having pay for maternity leave. It's actually, it's maternity leave. Get paid. You're
you
still
know,
within a job.
it's a no
It's
brainer.
a no-brainer, but you'll be surprised. So it's those kind of things when we say equal pay, and I mean, someone will say, "What's wrong with AstroTurf?" As a soccer player, that thing cuts you, and you walk into the shower, and you think you're gonna there's salt in your wound. But
Yeah,
it's
our
those kind of
teams,
things you don't
our
want to
rugby
play.
teams right now are
Exactly.
having issues with the
With the
with the
pitches.
pitches they're playing on in
And it's
Europe.
that. So yes, there's a money perspective, and we've seen that in the Grand Slam tennis, but there's also equal treatment, equal structures, and just set us up for success. That's what women's sport wants to do. Set me up for success. Give me everything I need to perform better. Then you can walk away and go, Sans, but we gave you everything, you still didn't perform. What now?
Mm,
Give me the good programs, set up the programs, set up international tournaments, inbound and outbound, do the grassroots level and everything. Just set us up for failure. Do the same treatment as we would have with men with us. Because some treatment doesn't need money. It just needs someone to apply themselves.
yeah,
I always say, someone who said, there's certain federations that don't have someone in their office looking after just the women's game. I said, that's at fault. That's a big fault already, because you just get bunched onto the tail end of the men's game.
mm,
Focus on, someone must be focusing on your women's program by themselves. This is my job, is to focus on the women's program, to grow the women's program, to market it, to let people know what time the fixtures are and where they are, and to make sure they're on the website, to make sure there's merchandise that goes with it. And we start then growing this thing.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, what you're saying now reminds me of about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure. I called Tony Irish, who was at the time with I think CEO of South African Cricketers Association, and take a wild guess what the discussion was about. Equal pay, and he actually said it's not about equal pay; it's about parity.
Yeah.
And then he walked me right down what you're saying, which is one, contracts, because what they were doing at the time, I think they were contracting their first 13,
Women.
women's contracts for in, never done it before. They were doing it for the first time, and you're actually looking at the results in a strange
Yeah.
way. And he was talking about exactly the same thing. You know, the medical aids, the flights, the hotels,
Yeah.
and you know there was no question that AB de Villiers was getting paid more than Marizanne Cup.
100%. Like,
But you know that's what it came down to. But look, I mean, I as much as much as you say it's not about exactly the same pay. You know, a big favorite of ours when he was in tennis, Rafa, when he was asked
yeah.
the same question, he was like, "Well, if you look at modeling, women models bring more money, so they get paid more. They're done."
Mm.
And that was his
This
thing.
is
But
the
he kind of like went the redemption route with the, you know, when he did that thing with Federer about
Yeah.
the ATP and the, you know, WTA
WTA
should merge and whatnot. You know, this is after COVID or whatever, or during COVID, leading
too.
to after. And of course, there's a certain nemesis of ours in Djokovic who kind of like, well, I don't see what the fuss is all
Yeah.
about. I when that kind of argument, when that dismiss, when there's a as an element of dismissiveness in the argument, does it not then become just about the money? You're like, well, if that's how you see it, then you know, let's run with that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think as much as we talk about the goats in tennis, you know, it's a debate that comes up every week. Let's be honest. Serena's probably done more than those guys put together just by what she's done for the game.
Yeah.
You know, forget the Grand Slams, which she still has more of. But you know, actually, when you look at her impact, it's been more than those guys. All those guys had to worry about was about playing tennis.
Yeah.
She had to worry about a bit more. So when that element of dismissiveness comes in, do you is it not irritating to just like, oh,
it is 1,000% irritating because it just, those guys forget that their voices for the game, one, and it just takes women's sport backwards because then it becomes like Djokovic. A lot of
Yeah,
people
he
listen
said
to
it.
him, and he said it, and he was very dismissive about it.
But it's okay. He's
Dude,
also an anti-vaxxer, though.
yeah, but dude, like you didn't need to say it because it just, you didn't need to say it. Just say, be diplomatic. Say there are ways we can reach the same outcome, whatever. Be, or if you don't want to say it, let it pass. But you having that moment where you were just like, yeah, well, we do fill up center court, so we do need more money. It's not about that. It's apply your mind to it, if I can call it that. Apply your mind to the conversation, and apply to your mind to, if a voice like mine gets behind the woman, what does that do for them? It really would have taken nothing from away from him, absolutely nothing. To like look at the situation, analyze it, and go, okay, cool. I think we can start talking about bigger percentages of women maybe drawing bigger percentages because of revenue or whatever than us, or but frame it in such a way, and maybe then he comes to the same outcome. He comes to the same dismissive outcome when he's applied his mind and thought about it. But I doubt it because the other conversation that really irritates me is that you don't have to have sisters, you don't have to have kids or girls that are in it to realize, oh, maybe I should not have said that 5 years ago. Just think about it on a global level of what can my voice do, in this.
And of course, you know the five set debate, where it's like, well, if you want equal pay, you got to pay 5 sets as well. It's like,
No, you don't.
okay, cool.
Pay
I
for
hear you.
shoulder. It's like
And that's the thing in all the tournaments in between the Grand Slams, men and women play exactly the same number of
yeah.
sets. You know,
But also, I
so
don't
for
want
the
to
vast
drive from the men's
majority,
tee. Honestly, I don't want to drive from the men's tee box. I want to drive from the ladies' tee box. I'm just not that powerful, and
yeah.
no one is asking us to drive there for more money. It's realistically, it's you male physique is more stronger. It's fine. Let's drive from the ladies' tee box. Let's earn our money still. It doesn't take away anything. Yeah, but
Yeah. Look, I mean, one of the strange things I've found is the 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 often vilified world governing bodies of sport are actually, in a strange way, at the forefront. If you look at World Rugby made it crystal clear to everyone that,
Yeah.
sorry guys, you gotta work your women's program, and
100%.
that lit a match under SA Rugby's backside, because before that not much was happening, and now suddenly they've got Lynn Cantwell, who's running, who's basically the Rassie Erasmus of the women's game in South Africa. Although I see she's either recently had a baby or is about to have one. Either way, it doesn't make a difference. I couldn't be bothered. But essentially, you've got that situation there, and you look at cricket. I think they've also done exactly the same thing, because you kind of look elsewhere. You kind of like, well, everybody else is improving so much, and we absolutely nowhere. So when you look at the South African landscape, um, what are you happy with in terms of who's making strides in the right direction, and what are you unhappy about in terms of who's basically dropping the ball simply because, well, they're waiting for somebody to light a fire under their backside.
Yeah, and just quickly touch on that lighting the fire thing. It's quite funny because there's been a voice that says CAF is going down the same route, right? You can't play Champions League if you don't have a women's
The
team.
women's team, yeah.
But we gave you years to sort your women's team out. Finally, we putting a mandate to it, sort it out. And I love that, because it doesn't just CAF doesn't just wake up and go set up a women's team. That conversation was ongoing, and I'm sure when they were having questions, African teams, have you set up a women's team? No, we're going to do it in the next 2 years. No, we're going to do it in the next. Okay, cool. We are now tired of you guys going. You're going to do it in the next 2 years. We're forcing you to go down that route, and we see it. We probably, if Barcelona wasn't forced to do it in Spain, would they have a strong La Femina team right now? I don't think so. But they had to. They had to go down and route and be like, we need to be deliberate about this.
I looked at their results the other day.
Insane, right? And also the
ridiculous.
Have you seen the stadiums? They're now playing at the Bernabeu sometimes because they can fill it up on
a big stadium,
on Champions League final nights. Okay, not every single game, but the main.
Have they lost yet?
I don't.
Because like the last time I looked, they hadn't lost a game.
They
were like literally scoring like 4 or 5 goals a match, which is just like, guys,
insane.
And they've got that Nigerian striker who gets off the bench quickly to score a hat trick, and then almost comes off again. It's like, dude, what is going on?
Job done. Job done.
Ridiculous.
So going back to your question, is I think for me, the netball structures are. I look at there's a bit of a structured program there, in terms of, there's participation in netball is a lot in this country. A lot. So I like.
Well, it's still the
highest, I think.
The highest, well, after ballroom dancing, apparently. Yeah. Somebody once asked me that as a trick. Somebody once asked me that as a trick question, and I got it wrong, obviously. So I've forever remembered it.
Yeah. So from I think junior levels to senior levels, netball really just has a bit of a structure going there. And what is it going to take then to turn the final, to go turn the semi-final into a final, or that third and fourth playoffs to a bronze? Those are then the attention to detail that's needed right at the back end in terms of a full-time program for the women's team. Yes, a lot of them can play overseas, but they must come back more often to play with each other. It's just that final tweaking, but in terms of a program that sets them up for success, I think netball is really something to look at, and we really got to dive deep into that. What are they doing right? They're beating the Jamaicas once off here. England's once off. What's going to take then to beat them consistently? So they're doing it right. And I hate this. Probably hockey's doing it wrong. And for the amount of money that's been invested over time, we just didn't. I say we just didn't move the needle. There was time we invested a lot of money. We stayed 12th for a while. We didn't move ranking position to get more tournaments and more exposure. So that was for me, like, it's probably a leadership thing as well. Just the board at SA Hockey, how it's functioning. It's probably a leadership thing. But and yeah, that's for me is the time the athletes have invested versus what they're getting out, probably, and seeing it because I was part of it, right?
Mm.
And seeing it has been, it's quite a sore point. And I think women's cricket is in a good space in this country. Um, and I know they'll probably turn Sunday into something bigger, just in terms of how they set themselves up for success going into more tournaments, and also just knowing that they can do it against, you know, England on a sunny day in Cape Town. You can really beat them and do it. So that's the those are the guys, and I think, um, yeah, man, Banyana do the work, but they do the work.
Yeah,
That's the difference.
I was
Man.
about to look at them and say, is their case
Yeah.
one of those in spite of situations?
Yes, 100%, because they're doing the work, but it just feels like there's not a consistent like league filtering through. Um, you know, I don't know if I can go, and we'll look this up. Can I go somewhere and find all the club fixtures for the local women's football team in this
Oh,
country?
it's a big struggle.
I can't probably.
And that's the
I don't know who's
thing. I
playing
mean,
when, right?
I mean, all of us, at some stage or other, if you're looking for fixtures in South Africa, you log on to SuperSport,
Yeah,
and that stuff doesn't exist
yeah. And
at all.
they don't have it because they don't have it there.
Yeah, they
It's
don't
not
have
there
it, yeah.
from someone else's back end. So it's those kind of things. It's like someone when I worked at Adidas and sponsorships and just understanding, we had a lot of girls who came and guys who said, "Please sponsor me. I'll do this." No, do what you want to do already, content wise, exposure wise,
Mm.
and then brands gonna look at you and go, "Oh shucks, let's back that horse. That's already going and it's same in federations. Consistently just be professional about your women's program, even if you don't have the money, right? But when you have moments where your teams are together, be professional. Be um, leagues must start on time, games must start on time, fixtures must be rolled out for the whole season beforehand. Just take care of your business internally as franchises or as federations, so that your Investex of the world and the Momentums know that their money is going to a well-run place. Don't go, we will run this machine well if you give us 20 million. No one's going to give you their money on some, we will do this. With your money, I will. No.
Hey, it's a promise.
Here's the blueprint of exactly how we go about our business. This is what we do on a minimal budget. So you can even say, this is what we run on a minimal budget. But with your money,
help, yeah.
this is where it takes us. With your money or your sponsorship or your investment, this is where we go. We're doing this already, but we'll get there.
This week I got my annual sort of text from the SABC, asking me to pay the TV license,
Yeah.
$265, giving me all the options. How crippling is it that they're a non-player? I imagine it's crippling in general for sport in South Africa, simply because I think a topic of discussion that sort of lies adjacent to the struggles of women in sport is obviously transformation. And if the kids who don't, whose parents cannot pay $1,000 a month to watch DSTV or SuperSport, cannot see it, cannot see Sia, they can't suddenly wake up and want to be Sia. So similar thing, obviously, I imagine with women sports people. How crippling is it that they are a non-starter in that debate?
So I think you remember this. Remember the ICASA hearings?
Yes.
Right, and then things were brought to light in the ICASA hearings. And one of the things that came about in the ICASA hearings, which was a surprise for me, is how long SABC had the women's netball broadcast rights before they even activated them. I was like, surely you're kidding. You had them for some time, but you did nothing with them, right? So then as a federation, I'm not staying with you. I understand that where are the eyeballs? SABC. But then if you're not putting my sport on, you're not taking it seriously, I'm going to Randburg because
Well, everyone seems to go to Rambo.
no, like, but you get what I mean. It's not, it's, and I'm not saying this for every federation, but I'm saying it for because that was out in the open. There was and we must find the time that, and it's in the CASA hearings that it was reported that SABC had the netball federation rights, and they would just didn't have the money to activate on them or didn't use them, and then netball walked away, which is not dissimilar to what happened with the ASA rights with Comrades and Two Oceans. Remember the year that threatened to be no Two Oceans?
Yeah.
Because SABC have no money. So as a federation, I'm going, right? If you can give me a clear plan and a runway of how you're going to broadcast my sports, get involved, send OB vans to make sure the finals of this tournament are broadcast, I'm all in. But if you disappoint me in the first two legs, I'm not coming back. Or I'm going to force myself out of the contract and then say, you didn't fulfill your part of the contract. Although I want the eyeballs. Everyone wants SABC eyeballs. There's a lot of them.
Sure.
Right? But, and I think for me, and this is a personal thing, if SABC can get to a point where maybe they know they can't fight Supersport commercially for bigger rights, for Premier League rights, that money's not there. Premier League rights are way above SABC's budget, and they're locked in. So if SABC knows that we can't get there, if they are deliberate and say these are the sports that we'll have, right? Right now there is some games of the German Bundesliga, but I don't think who watches that.
No,
I'd rather take your money and then go, we're gonna air momentum games, and that's a discussion with two bodies, right? You say to Supersport, you've got all the CSA rights, but can we get just the women's rights from you then? Then we know that we are being deliberate about women's sport. Flip and be the broadcaster that goes, cool, we don't have the budget for rugby rights, All Blacks and the Springboks and stuff, but we have the money for these and we'll be deliberate about investing in them, clear production teams, clear broadcast teams, and we're going to showcase women's sport. And that's an easy win, right? Because you're professional about it as a broadcaster. You go, I deviate. You see the women's campaign on Sky for Euros.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
the
else.
whole Euro broadcast was absolutely amazing from Sky. Because someone in the building was like, we're going to take this seriously. It's not just going to be, let's get the games from Wembley and good to go. Someone said, we're going to take this seriously, and they did. So it's that.
And I never understand why nobody sits and says, we'll market women rather. Well, not rather, but we'll market them more, simply because the stories are so different. It's not some spoiled brat jock who only plays who only plays golf or PlayStation in his downtime. Usually it's a mother who's like ferrying her kids all over the place. Those are just much more fun stories. Obviously I'm biased simply because I look for stories. I look more for stories rather than
just the basics.
Just the result. But I can never work out why you don't go that direction, because it's just like it's more relatable. It's you're not looking at these these people who just like may as well not be people. They so they're so athletic and elite in their athletics. It's just like it's something I don't.
You're right, and because you start to package the actual linear sport, so the live sport, but you package the stories around it, and it doesn't take millions of budgets. We're not trying to make Chasing the Sun, but you're trying to make good content around those women's athletes in that team, and putting them as inserts in between the broadcasts or whatever. But you're trying to tell their stories, because one thing in this, and just globally, that I've come to realize over the past few years is that when I'm invested in your story, I'm watching you week in, week out, because I want to see who are, like, oh shit, like that was his background. He did this. He came from this, and then I know a little bit more about you. I don't have to know that at Grey your percentage was 90% from the post, right? I
I
really don't care, but I want to know.
I still
You know,
nerd out on, if you see if you see if you see Laura,
oh no, technique
driving,
and oof,
and I still
yes,
nerd out on, yeah,
pure
she was a
nonsense.
medical student there, and
Yeah,
she had to like just put it to a halt, just so she could
that's
focus on the
on
cricket.
cricket. Yeah,
This is me at the pub.
yeah.
I am unfortunately that guy. I'll have a drink and I'll like give all these tidbits. It's like, oh, this guy or this lady
Yeah,
did this, and I love the like it. For me, that's
yeah,
what makes it,
yeah,
because that's why you watch sport. You don't just watch it for the
yeah,
sheer performance of it. You you almost like you constantly like looking for someone to identify
mm,
with, and one of those stories resonates with you. And I just, anyway, look, I mean,
I
we
mean,
could go around
like
the circle.
you love the stories where Serena goes, "I won the tournament in 2 hours sleep," and she goes, "What?"
Yeah,
Like, yeah, Olympia was sick and would not go to bed.
or I wanted pregnant.
Yeah, Olympia was just sick and wanted, or we were that French Open. They were rushed to hospital because she broke her arm. Olympia broke her arm, rushed to hospital. So Serena got home at 4 and was had to play the morning slot.
Oof.
And you go, shucks, I didn't know. As much though as I love Vili's story from the World Cup, when you start hearing backstories of certain things, you're like, shucks, maybe we gave Vili a hard time because,
Yes, when you
yeah,
learn that Vili is essentially
yeah,
chronically insecure,
yeah.
which is fair enough.
But it's those
Again, you
kind of
look at
things
that
like,
story and you're like, oh yeah, no, she's.
yeah, we
I don't
came
know
from,
how many times I've been, at work, I've sat and I've felt the same.
yeah,
I needed someone to, to say to me, oh, don't worry, you're gonna play on Sunday, and you're like, oh, okay. Then you kind of like you almost have to change your whole
yeah,
mindset. You've probably answered this question in a million different ways. Obviously, a lot is happening in women's sport in South Africa
mm,
in different pockets, as you said. How do we how do we bottle that and take it forward? Because that's essentially been the failure anyway.
yeah,
How do we how do we sort of how do we not leave it at just campaign sort of
yeah,
status where everybody came in front of someone spoken to a mic, came in front of a camera, said all the right things,
yeah.
and then they buggered off home and nothing happened. We back here again.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single answer to that right now, and I certainly don't have it. But what I could say is dedicated teams within, and I say teams, not just one person, which within franchises, that is a sole responsibility of growing or implementing structures and programs and acceleration programs, whatever you call it, departments actually mirror the men's team, right? Because I believe that those dedicated resources then champion that. There's a marketing team, there's a commercial team, or marketing person, commercial person, because salaries and I think what's referred to as OPEX, operational expenses in the federation, um, you can work around those. So you can maybe afford to employ more people without having to dip into, oh, but there's no sponsorship money because we can't pay them. Set it up in such a way that those are just the running overheads of CSA.
Mm.
But this group of people takes care of the women's game, and you are literally senior manager brand women's cricket, not senior manager brand cricket. Because what that I think happens, and I've seen it, is it's a 90-10. I'm going to spend 90% of my time marketing the men's game, and on shucks, actually, I want to check in with my boss on Saturday, on Friday, and let me make sure I've done some work on the women's program for next week for that check-in on Friday. So it becomes a side thing. So for me, yeah, as I said, I don't have a solid answer, but in all the federations that predominantly do well, there's just teams that are looking after the women game as its own entity. And I think that's important. Should we piggyback on the success of men as well? 100%. Well, let's get the eyeballs there. But should we be making sure we're telling and crafting programs that are different and, as I say, commercial partners, you driving, making sure there's commercial partners, there's a marketing, there's a team really driving the TV and the broadcast of the women's game. How do we expose that? How do we make it big? So, yeah, I think for me, it lies in that. It lies in dedicated resources to women's sport in different federations.
One of the sort of unique things that South Africa's faced with is our attitudes to, to women. Um, I used to write about the grassroots programs of cricket, CSA in particular, and so you get these coaches at grassroots level, and they're telling you about how difficult it is to convince someone from out there in KZN or the Eastern Cape or whatever that Nonkulego Mlaba must come in and bowl tweakers as like she must come and do what?
Yeah.
Sorry, um,
No, she can't.
I'm not interested. She needs to, she's got to look after her siblings. She's got to, there's all these things that our society demands of women, almost as if they're supposed to do that. And if you look at, you spoke about netball earlier. One of the big things, and not the only big thing that they did, was bringing the Aussie, the serial winner, Norma Plummer. And I see they've gone back. Yeah, they brought it back, obviously with the World Cup in mind, etc., etc. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but either way, she's back, and you can't look beyond the fact that she's had an impact in where that team is right now.
100%.
How sort of how much of a big step up would it be if we kind of like mixed our people, some of our forward-thinking people with maybe people from elsewhere in the world that are either a bit more advanced in terms of how they see it, or actually just don't have the same hang-ups that we do about, what a young woman should and shouldn't be doing. How much of a game changer would that be to sort of import some of those people to run some of these programs or help run?
A big change, because it brings it with it a different attitude. My hearings of Norma is Norma just wants to play good netball. We will do it at all costs. If it means, Andy Swell from KZN, sorry, you mean she can't come to camp? Why? No, she doesn't have money for taxi. No. Netball, SA, get Andy. I saw her last week. I want in my team. There was no, it's those kind of like stories you hear about Normal Plumber. She said, there is no way that girl's not going to be here. Whereas, can someone else really have that, is that attitude of, bring her here. She has to. She's raw. She's what I want. She's going to be part of this team. Let's make all the right calls that we move her to Joburg for the next 4 months and make sure she's set up sustainably. We don't just move her from a comfort zone to something she's not used to. But I saw her play 2 weeks ago, and I want her in my team. That's kind of the stories I hear about Norma all the time. Her deliberate nature in wanting what she wants for her team. So to that, it's exactly that. Someone then stops at a hurdle 1 and go, okay, cool, she's in KZN, she can't come.
You know what they like in KZN.
They don't want to come, or it's too much effort to get her into the team. No, she saw road talent and she was like, that's what I want in my team. So we need more of that. We need more of the thinking that, like, I remember growing up, grade 10s weren't allowed to play in first team. And I got to Cape Worth and I was like, sorry? grade 10, I'm just not allowed to play in first team because of my grade. You're telling me I'm good enough, but you just, so it was like, we've got
Did you
this.
actually play first in grade 10?
I did eventually because I changed the whole system because I was just like, and it's that, right?
Sounds familiar.
We've got these little bottlenecks that restrict us from success.
Self-created.
It's self-created, 100%, but restrict us from success. So there's grade 10s out there who have so much talent, the maturity for it, but we've decided that they're not mature for a senior first team, so they're not going to play in it. No. So it's those kind of things like, then you say, and exposure to the thing. So I'm needing to be going back and telling my story because I was a success story, but not a lot of other black girls. Someone asked me the other day why all goalkeepers in women's hockey black. I said maybe they just saw that I got out and because I was the first one in the national team goalkeeper. So then came Pums, Matsepo, but it's seeing, because Andiswa from Umtata knows what law can do for her and how law can change her life. She doesn't know that going the rugby route, or hasn't seen it, going the rugby route, getting a contract will also change her life, also change her family's life, because all of a sudden she's got the contract, she's got stable income, she's playing rugby. Yes, she can also study on the side and have a degree and make sure that, but predominantly, I want to be a doctor because that's what I've seen. I want to be a lawyer because I know what law is going to do for me. It's just, I want to be a CA, I want to be an accountant, whatever. I've seen it. I've visually seen black accountants and Tata, black CAs, whatever, to go, oh, that's what you can become and that's how much you can earn. Okay, I'm cool. I'm down for that.
Yeah. So I was going to tell you a terrible story about Beast, which is a good story.
But like,
it's terrible and good at
I don't
at
want them
once.
to talk because they have daughters. I want them to talk because they really believe that the growth of women's sport is important to our country. And I think Sia lends himself to that understanding that what women have meant into his world. But it's literally that. It's our male counterparts have the voice, have the platforms already. So use your platforms, not just to talk about game of two halves. Go into certain things a bit deeper. Going, look, we've got 4 World Cups this year, and
Sia's on a mission though.
yeah.
Oh, and he's been on a mission,
and rather
and that's actually what I love about him.
it's
It's just
it's authentically him then.
oh, he's sheer drive. I
Yeah.
mean, I accosted him when he went to the Sharks, and I just said to him, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
in my own sort of stupid way, I was like, dude, you're looking for something you haven't had in a long time. Hunger.
Yeah.
This rugby thing, playing for the Sharks, like you don't need, you don't need to play. Your endorsements, how much you're getting paid now, it's more than taken care of you already, regardless of the fact
What
that
happens, yeah.
you'll be 30 or whatever it was. And he was like, yeah, but none of it happens without the rugby. So I have to play well so that when I do speak,
It's great, but it's
people, will listen simply because of that.
And we've always, I think it's black kids growing up, we've always felt that way. I've always felt to have a voice, a credible voice in anything, I need to perform.
Yeah, you
So
can't just
I
speak.
can't just speak.
Yeah, from the back of the room.
No, I can't just speak from the back of the room.
You speak from the podium because you've earned that spot.
Exactly. And yeah, whether it's at work, you do the work, and then, in meetings you're getting to have a voice because you've done your work and you've done it well. It's the same on the field. If I'm putting in the performance on the field, I get to have a voice, and a credible one at that. No one's going,
Yeah, I was like, why are you shouting the odds?
yeah.
So my weird beast story was, again, about 4 or 5 years ago, we were doing the money this discrepancy in sport, and somebody slipped me the finances, and
The Sharks.
no, not at the Sharks, the SA Rugby finances. So I think they budget at the time for salaries, which I think is much less player salaries, which
Yeah.
I think is much less now because so many of our players play overseas,
Overseas, yeah.
and they've got this, players of national interest and whatnot. So anyway, at the time it was like 101 million, and from the 101 million, 85 went to the box, and 14 went to Blitzbox, and at the time the only contracted women players were the sevens women,
Okay.
and that was like the rest of it, 3
Yeah.
million. And long story short, I think Beast alone earned more than
Then
the whole
that,
team
yeah.
put together, and like comfortably. So I was just like, jeez. So maybe that's why he wants to speak now. I'm kidding.
No,
You'd probably kill me if you heard me say that. But yeah, it's one of those stories that kind of like outlines just how chalk
Vast
and
it is,
cheese, yeah, just how chalk and cheese everything is.
Mm.
But yeah, listen, it was good to. I know half the time you said, "Oh no, I don't think I have to answer." It's a lot better than a lot of the answers I've heard.
Yeah, man. I'm passionate about this, seeing this grow. I may not be invested in doing the work right now because I'm just focused on other things. But having played sport in our country and understanding what it did for me, and going, if 20 other black girls in my lifetime got that, it's huge. It changes who you are. It changes your opportunities, post career, what you feed into, what you provide for your family. It just does that. So for me, getting to a place where, the global game in any sport is just big, and we're making efforts to go. Um, I was in Paris for the last World Cup, Women's FIFA World Cup. I went to watch a few games, but if we're getting that on a scale of it's on our calendar type thing,
Mm.
that's what I want this globally to get to. Women's sport is on our calendar as a must see. We're going to watch the WNBA All Star Weekend, and those kind of things, because it's just it's sport at the end of the day,
Mm.
and it's pure athletes who have just put hours into their craft as well, just as much. That's the when we drill it down to its basic, that's what it is. We've got Marizanne Cup that's got a better cover drive than anyone I've seen. We've got, you know, left foots out there. We've got Alex Morgan who can hit a shot from anywhere. So there's the level of skill and the level of work that's put in by athletes. That's something we slightly miss in this whole conversation, is pure athletic genius of some of these athletes. Don't compare them, just look at them from a purity point of view, that these guys are good. They look after themselves, look after their bodies, train, put in the work, and just like, whether it's a golf swing that you'd like to model to any other golf,
Mm.
it's those kind of things. At the end of the day, I think sometimes we miss that, and the 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 people who know will watch Leon versus Barcelona women's game and go, shucks, you see the quality of that game, because then you know football. And I want us to get more to that point where we just understand the basic athletes behind these and how good they are. Because there's some pretty great athletes.
Sans, thank you so much for your time before you leave us.
Yeah, man. How's that?
Such a defector.
I'm going to just make sure that the wine in the Cape is well looked after.
Yeah, no, it's more like finished. John Dobson used to joke about how whenever the Stormers had time off, he knew that a huge population of the Bok sort of contingent in the Karoo was going to be, was going to be halved because one France Malherbe was going to go hunting. So that's what those guys do. So yeah, you sending you off to wine country is a bit like sending France Malherbe
I'm
amongst
just going to look at the harvest. Funny, you were talking about coffee. Do you know I think that's what we just get into.